Philadelphia is steep in broadcast history. From the early pioneering days of broadcasting in the 1920s to today, Philadelphia has always been at the forefront. The Delaware Valley has been home to some of the best local programming in the country, starting with the early soap operas and children's shows to pioneering the best news formats in the country. Much of it all began right here. From radio announcers to television personalities, cameramen to directors, these were the broadcasters that burned up the airwaves. These were the pioneers of Philadelphia broadcasting.
Welcome once again to another edition of Pioneers of Philadelphia Broadcasting. I'm Mike Strug, and with us this time is truly an icon here in Philadelphia, a gentleman by the name of Les Waas. Nominally an advertising guy, and if you ask for his business card, I suspect that's what you would have, but he is more a humorist for most of us than an advertising guy. The last time we were together was a little better than 30 years ago. It was April 17th, 1984. I was a reporter, the feature reporter at KYW-TV, that's Channel 3, and I did a series called Car 3, and that's when I met Les. Let's take a look at that.
Come a little closer. I don't want this to get around. You see this book? It's Chase's calendar of annual events. It's kind of the feature reporter's crib sheet. When nothing else is happening, well, you can always turn to Chase's and maybe come up with an idea. For example, if it's early February, you may want to do something on the Cordova Iceworm Festival. Late in October, we're reminded of the 1929 stock market crash. It was here in Chase's that we first learned of National Pickle Week, which we did a story on yesterday. At the same time, we spotted this entry, Birthday of Mother's Whistler, with a Huntington Valley address. Now, we all know who Whistler's mother is, but who is Mother's Whistler?
Mother's Whistler is me, and it's my birthday. And Mother's Whistler is a very good whistler who can whistle like birds, and in fact, in many cases, do a better job than the birds themselves.
Now, Chase's has never led me astray before, but there's something cuckoo here. This guy calls himself Mother's Whistler, and Chase's lists his birthday as a day to spread good cheer through whistling, but he's the spitting image of a guy by the name of Les Waas, a local advertising executive and president of the Procrastinators Club. You know, the group that celebrates New Year's on the 4th of July. So therefore, he's a noted practical joker. I suppose the test is, can he sing like the birds?
Well, the Bob White everybody knows about goes like that, but so few people ever hear of the White Bob, which goes. And there are other birds too, the gold-flecked nightingale, which goes. Nobody ever listens to that song. Of course, it's not really that much worth listening to in that case. It's a very simple song. And there's also the gold-flecked Daytonale. The gold-flecked nightingale only sings at night, and the gold-flecked Daytonale only sings in Dayton, Ohio.
Is this whole thing a put-on, Les?
Well, yeah, I guess you might call it tongue and beak.
I knew it. He put one over on Chase's. And all across the country tomorrow, feature reporters will be doing stories on the birthday of Mother's Whistler, set aside to promote good cheer through whistling. It'd be more appropriate to celebrate on April 1st. This story's for the birds. But thanks to this in-depth investigative report, Mother's Whistler won't be getting any free publicity from us. With Car 3, I'm Mike Strug.
So you get a sense of who Les Waas is. Les, nominally an advertising guy, but a great sense of humor, almost a comedian. How did you make that choice?
I don't think it was a choice with me because I love to see people laugh. And if I can make them do that myself, boy, I'll feel pretty proud of myself.
Well, you do it pretty well.
Well, thank you.
But your advertising says something as well. We were talking about this. Better than 900 jingles. You are the jingle expert. Mr. Softy. We're all familiar with the Mr. Softy trucks. That's your music and your jingle.
It is, and it's actually written, it was written as a jingle. In other words, there were lyrics to it also. And they decided one day to try it on their trucks. They only had 3 trucks. It was a small company in South Jersey. And
so it would have been for radio or TV, a jingle advertising, right?
So when they put that on, they found out that they got great success from it because the kids, it was only played on kids' shows. And then that's it. They didn't play it on the trucks until later. And that's what what hit. The mothers got the message.
Did you remember the lyrics to the jingle, the Mr. Softy jingle?
I'm sorry.
Did you remember the lyrics to that?
Oh, sure, sure.
Can you entertain us with that one?
I can sing it for you, maybe not entertain you with it, but it goes something like this. The creamiest, dreamiest soft ice cream is brought by Mr. Softy. For refreshing delight for cream, look for Mr. Softy. My milkshakes and my sundaes and my cones are such a treat. Listen for my store on wheels dingling down your street. The creamiest, dreamiest soft ice cream is brought by Mr. Softy. S-O-F-T-E-E, Mr. Softy.
And so many of us have heard that music and thought, when is that going to stop? As that truck sits out in front of your house. But you're the man. And you wrote many other jingles.
Oh, yes.
Can you give us some idea? What else, for example?
Well, United States Coast Guard, Ford Motor Company, the Holiday Inns. That was my favorite, by the way. And
you wrote a jingle for the Holiday Inn?
Yes. See, back at that time, we're talking about a few years ago now.
Okay.
It wasn't yesterday.
No,
but,
nor was our interview last time.
Well, the Holiday Inns at that time were the place to go in any city in America for dinner. The one best restaurant was always the Holiday Inn. And so I came up with a jingle, which they asked me specifically what to do, or what I should do. So the jingle went something like this. I forget.
You lost it?
I lost it because I started singing. Now,
we'll come back to it.
If it's a birth date, anniversary date, or regular Saturday night date, make it a holiday. Celebrate at Holiday Inns, and so forth.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So you had large sponsors that you were writing jingles for. Holiday Inn is a big deal. It's not 3 Mr. Softy trucks.
Oh, well, a lot of them were national, and of course they were more profitable. They had more money, and that's the way it went. But I never went out after getting jingles. I had somebody who was working with me who was the bird dog. He went out and he talked to advertising agencies and some big advertisers, and that's how we got the business.
Now, along with that, you were also entertaining people. You mentioned doing the Letterman show and that sort of thing. Yeah. Tell us about that. What were you doing there?
Well, as you know, I was president of the Procrastinators Club of America.
We'll get back to that in a minute, but sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we'll put that off.
Yeah, that's a great idea, yeah. But anyway, I was called to, I never went out solicited work or anything of that nature, but it was a case of getting on these shows simply because they called me. They wanted me on, and at that time there were several national shows that originated in Philadelphia, like Mike Douglas and so forth, and I was on his show 3 times. Maury Povich, I was on 5 times. I appeared as 5 different people because I was a different person each time. The president of the Procrastinators Club was just one of those people, but I had some others too. Mother's Whistler, you know about that one, and everyone. I had a Congressman Schwerbitz, and was on a lot of radio, and always on April Fool's Day. And the congressman had an idea as to how to save oxygen, because we as human beings inhale all the oxygen, more than what we actually need. So the Schwerbitz-Donaldson bill makes it mandatory that we all wear a nose device. It cuts down our breathing, inhaling in one nostril and exhaling from that one nostril. So it's like a cone-shaped device. You shove it up your nose, and if everything's all right, then you only inhale half the good air and the bad air through it. So there are all kinds of reasons why people don't like that idea. They think it would be difficult to do, but once you get used to it, there's no problem. And everybody believed it. We couldn't get. I did it for about at least 25 years.
And people thought you were really a congressman, really.
It was really so, and each person did it a different way. Each one of the, there was one, Joe A. Spivak, if you ever remember that
Sure,
name.
Joel
He was
Spivak.
pretty big locally, and he did this all over the country. And he was funny. He'd take on, I'd never know what he's going to say or what he's going to do. We never talked about it in advance. And he would try to catch me. He saw me taking money from somebody on a park bench. I said, no, he was giving me his lunch because I was kind of hungry, didn't have breakfast, blah, blah, blah. And all kinds of things. He'd try to catch me. And one, which is more recent, was Michael Smerconish. And when we first did it on the network, that really got phone calls like you wouldn't believe. And then the show carried forth the next day. A lot of people wanted to hear that, and they played part of it, and other people called up and they still believed it. So it was funny, but I had to keep a straight face doing it, although nobody could see me if I didn't.
Well, it would have as much chance of passage in today's Congress as anything else.
Yes, I think the chances would be much better, as a matter of fact, if I think both sides would have to be on the same side in this particular legislation.
Before we go on to procrastination, let's go back to Mother's Whistler.
Sure.
And this was all a put on of Chase's, of these people who put out this annual book of events. And your decision was, hey, I'm going to have some fun with these folks. Did you do any others like that with Chase's?
No, but they're listed, the Procrastinators Club is listed, I think, 3 times a year. One is National Procrastination Week, one is National Be Late for Something Day, and the other one has not been created yet.
Well, interestingly, when I Googled your name, one of the things that came up was a magazine, Psychology Today.
Oh, yes.
And you were named procrastinator, the greatest procrastinator in the history of mankind. And they named that at that time. They didn't put that off.
That's true, and I met and I know the fellow. He's a college professor, and he focuses on procrastination. Believe it or
I thought
not.
that was a put on, but apparently
that
he
was
really
true.
is,
That was
he
true.
really studies procrastination.
Yeah. Yes, so that was a lot of fun, because one of the questions I'm always asked, how long have I been president of the Procrastinators Club? Well, the club was founded in 1956, and the nominating committee for 1957 hasn't returned yet with a suggested slate of officers. So I'm just hanging in there, so to speak.
You continue to be the president. How did you come up with that idea? I mean, it's so strange, so humorous. Where did that come from?
It came from, I don't know exactly where it came from, but a couple of us were sitting around and before I had my own business, sitting around and somebody came up with the word procrastination for some reason, and it sounded like a big word back then. No, not too many people knew what the word meant.
Sure.
Even. And so we decided that we're going to start a Procrastinators Club, and we did, and we had there was a big chart or something right inside the Bellevue Stratford. There are 2 hotels, the Bellevue and the Stratford, and they became the Bellevue Stratford Hotel. They merged. And so they had a bulletin board which showed all of the different events that were taking place that day, and the people from the press who came in every day and read that would make a selection if they wanted to follow through.
If they wanted to do a story, there was a convention in town or whatever was happening, it would be on this billboard. They still do that at many hotels.
I imagine they still do, yeah. But they said that they would do it just to get some publicity.
And they put
the
up for
hotel, and so the day that was they were having this party for the Procrastinators Club, just so they could postpone it. So the party has been postponed. The party of the Procrastinators Club has been postponed until later. And we had to have a meeting, and all of us, everybody we knew, we'd have come to the ballroom. It's a gigantic ballroom, a whole 1,000 people. So we had our first meeting there, and I was elected president of it and the whole thing. And the biggest thing we had was near the beginning. We went to England, to London.
Oh, this is a great story. I'd read about this. So now we're in 1976, the bicentennial. Is that when that happened?
That was in Philadelphia, and it was we were going to do that for the bicentennial because it didn't have anything else going. Rizzo was mayor, and they didn't have anything. They had plans with all kinds of stuff and big celebrations. Nothing came off. So anyway, we went over Thanksgiving weekend to London to the Whitechapel Bell Foundry, where they made the bell.
The Liberty Bell.
And the Liberty Bell. And I asked the fellow there, who was a founder of the company. This company's 450 years old back then.
Yeah.
About 50 years ago. So we thought it wasn't your typical fly-by-night bell company, but they also made the bell in the Tower of Big Ben, and that has a crack in it. You can't see it. And the other bell, they didn't make the other bell, but it was the big bell of Russia, and that has a crack in it. So all three, the three best-known bells in the world today have cracks in them. And
you went there asking them to replace it?
Yes, we asked them. We went around with placards and everything. Said we got a lemon instead of a bell. The Liberty Bell is not all it's cracked up to be, and things of that sort. And the police started coming out and taking out their clubs and so forth because they didn't get any word of this. And they were calling in to the higher ups, of course, asking, what should we do about this? Because the guy who was the founder of the company, it means that he's the bell founder. He wasn't the founder of a 450-year-old company. So it was a lot of fun because the police finally put their clubs away and were laughing about it. And we were served wine and so forth. It was very pleasant.
The warranty on the bell had expired? Is that,
so
the warranty on the bell had expired?
Oh, that's what they said. And I said, no, that's not the information we have. And they were very nice to us. And what was amazing was that everybody in England heard about it, because even though they have small papers, they carried that story. And it was carried all over the world. And the one thing we regret was that we couldn't get turkey anyplace.
They didn't have turkey in England?
They don't know what it is.
Oh. How disappointing.
A British person will never ask for a turkey sandwich, because what is a turkey sandwich?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Are you putting me on?
I could be, but I don't do that kind of thing.
You've seen all the changes that have taken place in advertising and radio and television. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? When you started, well, when I started, there were only 3 or 4 stations in Philadelphia. Now there are hundreds of stations when you turn your TV on. The same was true of radio stations. What's it been like for you to watch that transition?
Yes, and the disappointing factor was that back in the day when I was starting out in the business, it took a creative brain to get into advertising ideas. And I would never do anything inside the box. Always everything was outside the box.
Trying to come up with something new.
Something new. Yeah. I saw an auto dealer, and we became close friends. And this auto dealer had a company called Norristown Ford, and if you drove by his store, you wouldn't notice it. So I decided, why not sell the emblem on the back of the car instead of the car? Mm-hmm. And you wonder why anybody would buy an emblem to put on their car.
Right.
The reason was you wouldn't be embarrassed by the fact that you were not an astute buyer. That you have a Norristown Ford emblem on the back of your car means that you, assumedly, you got your car, you bought your car from Norristown Ford. So nobody would say, ha ha, you didn't get your car at Norristown Ford, how much did you lose? that kind of thing.
So that wasn't done before? In other words, the dealers didn't have their own emblems before you came up with
Well,
that
they had
idea?
their own emblems. All dealers have an emblem on the back. Now they put it on license plates and everything else.
Right.
But yes, they really made the thing famous, and they did so well. Within a year, they had moved up on Main Street, I guess it is, and they had a business that was 5 times the size as it was before. So I syndicated it, and it went to a lot of other dealers, and they found success with it also.
What other things are you really proud of that you did that you remember and say, hey, I did that? What?
One of the things I have it here somewhere was a card. It was like a business card. It had the logo and everything else on it for an outfit called Super Value Beverage Stores, and did a jingle for them and everything else. And it was a client of my own agency. And this card, you had to follow all the instructions. For example, you better not lose it. It's the only one you'll get. And what do you get with this card? Actually, you get nothing, but if you read it through, it's kind of funny. And yeah, that
A humorous business card.
That made them move up fast, which they had to do. They had about 30 partners. Each one had a store of their own.
Oh,
So,
I see. So in other words, the cards were for these other businesses, not for your.
well, they all were Super Value Beverage stores.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so they all did the same thing, whatever they did. And that was highly successful. Anything I got into of that nature, that's what I had one dealer up in, anyway, they were a Buick, Oldsmobile Cadillac dealership, Charles Oldsmobile Cadillac. And you would ask, the commercials would ask, who's Charles? He's the one that owns Charles Oldsmobile Cadillac. Well, why doesn't he use his last name? Because he's a little funny about having a high profile. He doesn't like that kind of thing, and so he keeps everything at a low profile. He has a sign. It says Charles Oldsmobile Cadillac, but it's out back someplace where nobody can see it, and that kind of thing. When he was named the person of the year for people who were low profile, the low profiler of the year. They called.
It's like procrastinator of the year.
Yeah, they called him up. Exactly. They called him up, and his wife answered the phone, and she said, "Who?" So, that kind of thing. And
So was all of the advertising you did that kind of innovative, humorous stuff, or did you do some straight advertising, go buy a Joe's Auto Sales or whatever?
I don't think I could write that kind of stuff if it was straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's writing a commercial, and a lot of that you hear now on radio. It's just an announcer doing, and they do a good job and everything, but they don't go into creativity as much as they used to. And I think it was the internet that did it, because I don't see a great deal of innovation or creativity at all in what I see on the computer, the ads or commercials, if you want to call them that. They don't seem to grab your attention. Some do. They have
somehow you can cut them off. You can look away. You can. It's not quite the same as it was when you were watching TV or listening to the radio. So they don't, but that does seem as if they're doing more and more of that, where in order to see whatever it is you wanted to see on the internet, you first have to watch their commercial. So what would you do if you had to write a commercial for an auto company, an auto sales company?
I don't know, but it'd be so much different than what you see today that you can make a choice somehow. There are some that grab my attention, but the percentage is very small.
You actually had two different companies. One was the advertising agency.
Yes.
The other was New Sound. What was New Sound? Explain that to
New
us.
Sounds was totally creative, but in nature. Most of the work that was done by New Sounds was for advertising agencies who didn't have the degree of creativity available to them. And some of them are very easy to come up with. I couldn't hold back coming up with a creative idea, including a jingle. I have to do it right away and get it out of my hair before I would go into the next project.
So can you give me an example? So an advertising agency would come to you and say, hey, we've got this client and we want to write a spot for them. And they would tell you who the agent or who the client was? Can you give me an example where that might have happened?
Well, as I said before, there was a fellow who worked with me, and he was like a bird dog. And he went out to various agencies. He'd spend a week or two in Pittsburgh and get to know the ad agencies there, and tell them, and he'd have something to show them. We have
something
a real,
that you had already done,
yes,
one of your spots.
and that would get them. And as a result, we got an awful lot of banks and utilities, gas companies and electric companies and so forth. And
how do you
auto
do something
dealers.
creative on something as dull as a utility company? You know, use our electricity or our gas. How do you?
I'd have to know about the company first.
Oh.
I'd have to know that the president of the company is not going to turn it around and say, no, that won't work. A lot of people did that. And if you can talk them into doing it and telling them why, and they use it and it's successful, you stay with them for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So you had to talk to these people who are businessmen interested in selling their product. You have to tell them that the way to sell it is with humor.
Yes.
Make
And
them laugh.
they have to have a sense of humor that is in the same kind of category as an auto dealer could do anything if he wants to. Most of them today seem to want to do the commercial themselves.
No, there are a lot of those, aren't there?
And you see very little actual creativity except in telling you you should buy the 2015 such and such, and this week only we're selling them for $20 a piece.
I'm going to call right now and we'll send you two of them.
Yeah, we'll send. Yeah. So that was kind of funny, and my weirdest experience was the fellow I worked for, my last employer. His best friend happened to be Lee Iacocca, and he was in our office, I guess 2 or 3 times a week because he had lunch with my boss. And one day, my boss was out to lunch, not with Lee Iacocca, but somebody else. The fellow had a company called University Ford in South Philadelphia. And my boss comes in when he comes back from lunch, he comes in and says, boy, Archie Robinson had one heck of an idea. This is so great. When do you hear it? I said, what is the idea? He says he wants to sell a 1996 or whatever Ford such and such for only $1,996. I said, he can't do that. The cheapest, oh no, for $996.
Right.
I said, the cheapest car they have is like $2,000 something. So he said, yeah, that's, oh, he has it right there, plain in the ad, power options extra. And I said, what, like power option, what would one of them be? He said, the motor. I said, oh, that's funny. Yeah, and then he walked out. An hour later, he comes back, Les, you got the ad ready? I said, what?
Yeah.
He said, you got the ad ready. How are you going to make an ad for University Motors? I said, for the Bulletin tomorrow. The Bulletin was the largest newspaper in the country at the time.
Yeah.
And their first edition only had 50,000 circulation. And today, I don't know what the Inquirer has, but they would like to have that circulation. Anyway, I said, it's going to be a war down there. I'm going to get out of town. But he went, gave him the ad. The ad got in the next day's paper,
So he was serious. He wanted to sell.
He
this
was
car.
serious,
Yeah.
and he said.
You're saying, by the way, let's clarify. You're saying 1996, but this was much before 1996.
I would think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Yeah, right.
So, what happened was there were people there early, and there was a line all the way around the block. And finally, the first guy goes in, and before he gets the second guy, before the second person goes in, the first guy comes out, and he says, "Wait till you hear this." And the first 4 or 5 people in line heard it, and boy, and it spread like that.
That he was selling the car without an engine.
Yeah. He found out what it was right off the bat. So they closed the Ford Motor Company closed up the agency immediately, and he was put out of business.
Really?
And, yeah, and that was the end of that. And then some years later, 4 or 5 years later, I had lunch with a bookbinder who was my client, and we went to bookbinders.
Sure.
And he had his own table there. He went there every day for lunch. There's a bookbinder, not by marriage or anything.
He bound books.
That's what he binds books.
Right.
So I said, "Oh, I remember you." I said, "Remember University Ford and what happened there? That was really a pretty bad situation, wasn't it?" He says, "Boy, it sure was. Imagine they wouldn't have a good idea if it was handed to them on a silver platter." He was serious. He thought they had it in for him or something.
This is the guy that had.
Yeah, the guy that had the dealership.
Had the dealership.
He said, "Boy, what a stupid company that is." You know? Ford Motor Company. And anyway, they're now #1. So.
But he's not.
Yeah. So my boss had told me that if you are the employee, I am the employer. If an employer tells an employee what to do, that employee does it or he gets fired.
What are some of your other successes, other things you remember and say, "Wow, I did that. I can't believe I pulled that one off." Are there others that come to mind like that?
Yeah, there were auto dealers I've had a lot of fun with because I don't know why, I just gravitate. Because they were fast enough. It doesn't take a lot of education or anything else to be an auto dealer. If you have the financial wherewithal to get a loan of $500,000, they'll lend you the rest.
But would they buy your humor if you were selling their cars? Did they say, "Okay, make me a funny ad"?
It was an assignment. I got a big batch of change doing that. They paid well.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, it had to be done in a rush. It had to be done all produced and everything else within 2 weeks. And it's like impossible. It was done in 2 weeks, and about 3 months later, they implemented it.
Yeah. Do you remember any of the jingles you did for car dealers? Any of those come to mind? I know you said you can remember every one you ever wrote.
I can.
I want to test you.
Sing it to me. Sing half of it to me for the first couple of words, and I'll sing the rest. Yeah, I can remember. There's a lot of them.
Yeah. 973 is the number I saw.
Yes, so that's well, it's more than that. But and again, I did it, and then I wiped it from my mind because I didn't want to copy myself.
Oh.
And that could happen because they start getting familiar. When you go to record it, you hear it a couple hundred times. And if you walk out of the studio and you don't remember it, that means it's not a good jingle.
But that is the difficulty, isn't it? To keep coming up with new ideas, not simply to play around with the old idea and make it slightly different, to make a brand new idea. How do you do that when you're dealing day after day, year after year, with clients who are looking for something new, not something novel?
Yes, well, see, that was the whole idea was idea. I kept getting new ideas because I was involved in so many different people that hired me, and for a jingle or whatever, and so it was easy for me to keep going and coming up with ideas because I was second hat to me, so it was easy to do, and I had to do them very quickly, and I've never learned music. I never took music lessons or anything of that sort. Can't write music down.
Well, then how did you do that? How did you, for example, if we use the Mr. Softy jingle, which included music, and you just sang it for us, how did you convey that to someone else, or did someone else work for you and write the music?
Well, I've heard samples. I mean, they always get a sample tape, which was very well produced.
But you did that. In other words, how did you create the music that went with the Mr. Softy jingle, or didn't you do that? Did you?
Well, they had a truck, and they gave me what the truck did at that time, and all it was a bell, and they hit it with a knob of some sort, and it goes ding, 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 and then I had these kids singing, "Here comes Mr. Softy, the soft ice cream man," and those same kids were used in the jingle. They were, because I was producing a jingle. I wasn't producing a truck
No,
song.
I understand. But when you did it, how did you create the music itself? If you don't write music, did you just hum?
I love music.
So did you?
It was
hum
just
the
that I
tune,
never
or
learned it.
You would hum the tune for someone, and they would write it down. Is that how it got?
No, I had to use my own. I had to improvise. I put dots on a paper and 4 lines. I know that's where music is written. So I said maybe it works, and I'd have to keep singing it and singing it after. The Melrose Diner, I sang it on the phone. I said, "What you better have is a jingle." And he said, "Like what?" And I sang it. And when I finished, I said, "Can I call you back in 5 minutes?" We didn't have caller ID back then. And he said, "Okay." So I wrote down the music, made darn sure, and I could, if I was near one, I could tape record my singing it and so forth. But otherwise, I would forget, and I have to do another one.
Well, what was that jingle for the Melrose Diner? Do you remember it?
Oh, sure. It was everybody who knows goes to Melrose. Everybody who knows goes to Melrose. Everybody who knows goes to the Melrose Diner restaurant for the most in quality. And that is about a 10-second jingle. And if we put it in at the beginning and the middle and the end of a 30-second commercial, it gets heard so often. I just use it for identification.
Between that and the Mr. Softy music, you were the hit parade of Philadelphia jingles.
Yes.
And memorable, and one of the broadcast pioneers. And it's been our great pleasure to talk with you, Les. Thank you very much for taking time with us. Do that one more time, the Mr. Softy, for us. Let's go out with that one. Can you sing that jingle for us?
Okay, I'll do a deep voice for the Mr. Softy himself.
Go ahead.
The creamiest soft ice cream is brought by Mr. Softy. Oh, they're kids.
Okay.
The creamiest soft ice cream is brought by Mr. Softy. For a refreshing delight supreme, look for Mr. Softy. My milkshakes and my sundaes and my cones are such a treat. Listen for my store on wheels jingling down your street. The creamiest soft ice cream is brought by Mr. Softy. S-O-F-T-E-E, Mr. Softy.
Thank you very much, Les. Terrific
pleasure.
talking with you.